So now that Lies of P Overture is out, that means that Lies of P is done and over with. And now that Lies of P has had its time to shine, I think that we can all agree that there is a new competitor in the Souls-like genre. With Lies of P being Round 8 Studios' first Souls-like game, I have to say that even though I don't love every single thing about this game, it's very impressive for what it accomplished. Not only are there a ton of Souls-like games that I play for a few hours and drop because the quality isn't that great, this is the game where I can genuinely see a bright and great future for this team. I am so excited for the future of Round 8 Studios and the future Lies of P sequel. So because of that, I would like to discuss and talk about things I would like to see in the future Lies of P sequel. I have a list here and I've thought long and hard about what Lies of P succeeded at and things that I would like to see the sequel do. So first of all, let's talk about difficulty. Difficulty in the Soulsborne games has always been a bit of a touchy subject. Some people are like myself and they can handle extremely high difficulty. Some players would rather avoid all of that at all costs, and they would summon their Mimic tier, get a Rivers of Blood on launch Elden Ring or what have you. So there's clearly not a right or wrong answer with how developers handle difficulty in my opinion. And if there is difficulty that is overtuned, it usually gets addressed in a patch. A good example would be the Radon triple slash. If you were to go back 1 year ago and ask Soulsborne fans if Souls likes need difficulty sliders, I have a feeling that the overwhelming majority of them would say no or don't care. But with the release of Lies of P Overture and the Kazan game, difficulty sliders are going to become a lot more accepted within the Soulsborne community. I don't think From Software will ever go there, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but we're no longer at the point where difficulty is this thing that you need to accept no matter what happens in these Souls-like games. And just to prove that to you, I want to read you a quote from Ji-Won Choi, the director for Lies of P. Quote, "No, you cannot choose difficulty options in Lies of P. We believe Souls-like games should not have difficulty options. We believe the tightness of the level design is one of the most attractive things about this genre." Well now, he kind of changed his tune, didn't he? He didn't think these type of games needed a difficulty slider, and 2 years later, we now have a difficulty slider in Lies of P. Kind of odd, huh? Now let me read you a brand new quote he said right before Lies of P Overture's release. Quote, "We wanted to make sure a wider audience of players could play the game. We have a lot of feedback from customers and from our developers. So by making development adjustments and introducing these difficulty options, we can offer the experience to different types of players. This broadens the base." Ah, he really changed his tune, didn't he? Well, that's because I think that these Souls-like games are trying to separate themselves from Software as much as possible. Trying to directly tackle what From Software does is going to be pushing a boulder up a hill. You're not going to beat From Software directly at their game. However, you can carve out your own little fan base by changing a few things but keeping the Souls-like heart intact. The Neo games and Team Ninja is a great example of this. This team has a lot of unique and interesting combat abilities you can do within their games, and they are a Souls-like game that's not trying to directly tackle From Software. And I believe that this is what Lies of P's sequel is going to be doing more of. In fact, I think that this was inevitable. Lies of P released too hard. It released very hard. And soon after the release of the game, they heavily nerfed the game. So much so that, as I said before, I think it lost a part of its identity with me. And now we have people that are happy and chanting the release of an easy mode. I saw a video by Charlie who talked about this, and while I don't think he said anything wrong, and I mostly agree with what he said, he didn't say something that I was really hoping he would say. Let me tell you something that I think could have been added to his video. It's that Lies of P isn't going for this super hard experience like From Software is. Let's just remove the bosses in Lies of P for a moment here. The level design in Lies of P is extremely linear. You cannot get lost in the world. It's not possible. Lies of P doesn't have these little nooks and crannies you can explore like Stormvale Castle. There's minimal secrets in the level design. There's one optional area in the base game. The storytelling in Lies of P is exponentially easier than From Software's games. The story is directly told, almost like Sekiro, but I would say that this game has easier storytelling to understand than Sekiro. Quests automatically tell you when they can be advanced and where you need to be to advance the quest. And there's many more. Lies of P is not obsessed with being this super hard game like From Software games are. Now, let me tell you why From Software should never add an easy mode with their current game design vision. And it's that everything that From Software does, mainly Miyazaki-led Soulsborne games is what I'm talking about, is hard. The level design in Elden Ring is hard. Levels are very large and complex, and you are going to miss secrets and optional paths. The quests are hard. You need to follow a guide to advance most quests, or at least I do. Having to throw an oil pot at Alexander so you don't smash him to pieces is not an extremely intuitable thing for most players. They need to follow a guide. The lore and the storytelling is also hard, along with the quests, as I said earlier. The bosses are hard. the storytelling is hard. Everything about a Miyazaki-led Soulsborne game is hard. So, if we added an easy mode to his games, it would feel off because of what the rest of the game is trying to do. The game is trying to be hard. Difficulty is salient within Miyazaki's games. So now that we have that out of the way, it's quite clear to me that these future Souls-like games are going to be in the Souls-like genre, but they're going to try and separate themselves as far as they can from software, because you just won't beat them. And NeoWiz has set themselves up to be a different Souls-like competitor. So that will transition us to our next talking point, which is the setting in the sequel for this game. At the very end of Lies of P, we see the name Dorothy revealed, and then right after that we see her clap her shoes together, which means something, I guess. Fun fact, I had no idea what this scene meant the first time I saw it, and then I said, huh, who is this in the Pinocchio lore? I don't watch movies that often, so I had no idea that this is the Wizard of Oz. Anyway, this is a great way that NeoWiz has separated themselves from software. It's a pretty easy hook for players to pile into Lies of P. You have this new video game world with Pinocchio, the Wizard of Oz, and maybe even something else in the sequel. Since I assume we are going to a more whimsical setting with Dorothy, I have to assume that we're not going to be doing more deflecting in the sequel for Lies of P. I don't know anything about Dorothy, but I think it would be a little bit off to see her using these weapons and deflecting with them. And honestly, I think that's a great thing. If NeoWiz is not building a deflection-based game, I think that's one of the better choices they can make. It is the responsibility of a game designer to predict the future of gaming as best as they can, and to design a game that they think will be relevant when it's released. You have to think 3 or 4 years in advance, and that must be very hard. The reason I mention all of this is because I think that the deflection-based game is going to hit a burnout streak if it's not already here. I personally need a long break from deflection-based games for the time being. I played 9 Souls, I played Lies of P, Sekiro. Even games like Expedition 33 now have a deflection-based system. And I think I'm getting a bit tired of it. I'm getting a bit tired of waiting until the very last moment, pressing L1, and then counterattacking when it's my turn. It's a very fun system when it's fresh, but since deflecting is a very one-dimensional gameplay style of wait till the last moment and then press L1, I need a break from it. I need a break. Now, when I was initially saying that in my mind, I was like, oh no, they have to do deflection. They are not going to be able to iterate on a formula that they have made. This is bad. They have to do deflection. But I've backtracked on that, and I think that they have fundamental systems in their current game that can be iterated on to advance their formula. So what is it? Well, I certainly don't think it's the level design, but what I do think it is the weapons. Lies of P's weapon system is one of the most unique systems I've ever seen in any game. This game has almost an unlimited amount of replayability with how many weapon combinations you can actually do, and the DLC only added on to that. The DLC added a handful of new weapons, some unique, some not unique, and now you can go into New Game Plus with all these new weapons to toy around with. So even if NeoWiz doesn't continue with a deflection-based game, they can still keep what made their first game really unique in my opinion, and iterate upon that. Even though there's a ton of weapon combinations you can toy around with, I think the weapon skill ceiling can be pushed. What you can do with these weapons. How internally complex can they make each weapon to show off player skill? A great example of this, and no doubt Lies of P's weapon system was probably inspired by Bloodborne, is in Bloodborne you can press R1, and then if you want to change your weapon stance, you can press L1 right after your R1 attack comes out. Then you will do a little combo to extend your damage and to swap weapon stances. This was a genius idea from software because it made it so players didn't have to wait for the frames to be done of their current attack, back dodge away, press L1 to go to a different stance, and then they would continue playing the game. No, from software skipped that. And I think if Lies of P's sequel added something like that, that would raise the skill ceiling exponentially. And there's even more that can be done, I'm sure. So to top this video off, I want to talk about open world. Is it going to be open world? And when do I think this game will release? Let's quickly address the open world conversation. There's been some rumors saying that Lies of P's sequel will be open world. While that is possible, and I do view video games as art, therefore I do want the artists to freely express themselves in their art, I'm not exactly sure if that would be the step that I would think this team would take. I've never been a fan of Lies of P's level design, so taking an open world design when I'm not even happy with their level design would be a pretty big step. However, if that is what the team wants to do, then don't let me stop you. In regards to the release date, Lies of P was developed in 3 years, and I assume that it wasn't all hands on deck for the Overture DLC, so the sequel may be further in production than we might think. this is still a relatively small team, so they don't have an unlimited budget to create this massive game such as Elden Ring. If they can take systems that they made in Lies of P and refine them in Lies of P's sequel, I think that the sequel could release around 2028. At the earliest, 2027, but that would be a really fast turnaround. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Let me know what you want in the sequel. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. As always, thank you for watching.